Emma and Jack had been married for 19 years, and for most of those years, their relationship had been steady. Not perfect, but steady. Emma, a brilliant surgeon at the local hospital, was the backbone of her family. Her dedication to her work meant late nights, long shifts, and often little energy left for anything else. Jack, on the other hand, worked from home as an IT specialist. It suited his personality: quiet, introverted, and structured. Their 17-year-old daughter, Mia, was the light of their lives, a smart and empathetic teenager who often took on more than she should to keep the household running smoothly. Emma's younger sister, Lisa, had moved in a year ago after her divorce, citing a need for a fresh start. Emma, ever the caretaker, had opened her home to her sister without hesitation. At first, the arrangement worked well. Lisa helped around the house and bonded with Mia. But over the past few months, something unspoken began to shift. Jack had grown distant, though Emma chalked it up to stress. Lisa, always bubbly and charming, seemed to linger around Jack more often, laughing at his jokes and brushing against him in ways that felt just a little too intimate. Emma noticed but dismissed it. After all, Lisa was family. It was on one of those long nights at the hospital, with Emma scrubbing in for an emergency surgery, that Jack and Lisa crossed a line. For Jack, it had started with an unspoken longing, a creeping dissatisfaction he couldn't quite articulate. Lisa was there, filling the void Emma's absence left. It was wrong, and he knew it, but knowing and resisting were two entirely different things. When Emma returned home that night, exhausted to her core, she walked into a house that felt different. The lights were dimmed, the air thick with something she couldn't name. Lisa was in the kitchen, too cheerful for the hour, while Jack sat on the couch, his laptop open but untouched. "Hey," Emma greeted, dropping her bag by the door. Her voice was soft, weary. Jack looked up, his smile forced. Lisa avoided her sister's gaze, busying herself with wiping an already clean counter. Something about their energy felt off, but Emma was too tired to dwell on it. "Rough night?" Jack asked, his voice gentle. She nodded. "Yeah, I'm going to shower and crash." As she climbed the stairs, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping away from her, though she didn't yet know what. The next morning, Emma woke up to the familiar sound of clinking dishes. Jack had already made coffee, and Lisa was chatting with Mia at the breakfast table. For a moment, the scene seemed perfect. Her family, together, happy. But as Emma stepped into the kitchen, her eyes caught something strange. Jack's hand brushed against Lisa's as they passed each other by the sink. It wasn't an accident. The touch lingered. Emma paused, her smile faltering. She told herself she was imagining things. It had been a long night, and she was running on fumes. She grabbed a mug and poured herself coffee, letting the warmth anchor her. "Morning, Mom," Mia said cheerfully. "You look like you didn't sleep much." Emma smiled at her daughter. "Long shift, sweetheart. Au fine." She looked at Jack, who seemed engrossed in his phone. "Anything exciting planned for today?" "Just work," Jack said without looking up. His voice was casual, almost too casual. "I might take Mia shopping later," Lisa chimed in, her tone overly sweet. "Girls' day out." Mia rolled her eyes but smiled. "Yeah, because I love trying on clothes for 3 hours." Emma chuckled, but her mind was elsewhere. The way Jack and Lisa moved around each other, it was too easy, too familiar. She sipped her coffee and reminded herself to stop overthinking. Later that day, as Emma prepped dinner, she overheard Lisa laughing from the living room. A quick peek revealed her sitting way too close to Jack on the couch, scrolling through something on his laptop. The scene struck Emma like a slap. "Everything okay in here?" Emma asked, her voice steady but firm. Lisa jumped up too quickly and laughed nervously. "Oh yeah, Jack was just showing me some work stuff." Jack glanced at Emma, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, just explaining some coding stuff. Nothing exciting." Emma forced a smile and turned back to the kitchen, her stomach nodding. It wasn't just her imagination anymore. Something was happening, and it wasn't right. That night, as Jack got into bed beside her, Emma felt a wall between them. She wanted to talk, to ask if he was happy, if he felt neglected, but she couldn't find the words. Instead, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when her marriage had started to feel like this. The days passed, and the unease Emma felt grew like a shadow she couldn't shake. Jack was more attentive than usual, but it felt performative. Lisa, on the other hand, seemed more distant, retreating to her room early in the evenings. To Emma, the entire household had taken on a strained, artificial cheerfulness that only heightened her suspicions. One evening, Emma came home earlier than expected. Her surgery had been postponed, giving her a rare opportunity to enjoy dinner with her family. As she entered the house, the first thing she noticed was the quiet. Too quiet. Mia was at a friend's house studying, but Jack and Lisa should have been around. She placed her bag on the counter and moved toward the living room. The television was on, but no one was there. Then she heard faint voices coming from upstairs. Emma froze, her heart pounding. She told herself it was nothing, that they were likely just chatting, but curiosity, or perhaps instinct, drove her to take a step closer. The voices grew clearer as she ascended the stairs, and by the time she reached the door to Lisa's room, she could make out their words. "You can't just keep acting like nothing's happening," Lisa said, her tone sharp. "I'm not," Jack replied, his voice low but urgent. "But we have to be careful." Emma pushed the door open without thinking. The sight before her stopped her in her tracks. Lisa sitting on the edge of the bed, her face flushed, while Jack stood near the window, his hands gripping the frame. They both turned to her, their expressions a mix of shock and guilt. "What's going on?" Emma asked, her voice calm but firm. Lisa stood up quickly, smoothing her shirt. "Nothing. We were just talking." Jack cleared his throat, avoiding Emma's gaze. "Yeah, about, family stuff." Emma's eyes darted between them. "Family stuff? At this hour in her room? Do you think I'm stupid?" Lisa stepped forward, trying to place a hand on Emma's arm, but Emma stepped back. "Emma, don't make this into something it's not. You've been so busy, and we—" "Don't," Emma interrupted, her voice trembling. "I don't know what's happening here, but I'm not blind." Jack finally met her gaze, his face pale. "Emma, it's not what you think." Her exhaustion gave way to a deep, simmering anger. "Then tell me what it is, Jack. Because right now it looks like my husband and my sister are hiding something." The room was silent, the weight of her words settling over them. Lisa opened her mouth to respond, but Emma didn't wait. She turned on her heel and left, her mind racing with questions she wasn't ready to answer. That night, as she lay in bed alone, Emma stared at the empty space beside her. For the first time in her marriage, she wasn't sure if she wanted Jack to fill it. The following morning, Emma woke up to the sound of Jack shuffling around the kitchen. The smell of coffee drifted upstairs, but it did little to soothe the knot in her stomach. She stayed in bed longer than usual, trying to piece together her thoughts. She knew something was wrong, but without proof. What could she say? What could she do? When she finally went downstairs, the atmosphere felt heavy. Jack greeted her with an overly enthusiastic good morning, his tone brittle, like he was trying too hard. Lisa was nowhere to be seen, and Emma assumed she was hiding in her room. "Coffee's ready," Jack said, sliding a mug across the counter to her. He hesitated before adding, "About last night." Emma raised a hand to stop him. "I don't want to talk about it right now." "Emma." "I said not now, Jack." Her tone was sharper than she intended, and she immediately regretted it. She took a deep breath, trying to soften her expression. "I'm not ready to have this conversation." Jack nodded, his shoulders slumping. "Okay, whenever you're ready." Emma took her coffee and retreated to the backyard, needing air and space. She stared at the garden, the neatly trimmed bushes and colorful flowers she used to tend to, but hadn't touched in months. Her life was like that garden, once vibrant and full of care, now overrun by weeds she'd ignored for too long. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Mia, asking if she could stay at her friend's house for the weekend to work on a school project. Emma hesitated before replying, unsure if she wanted to be alone in the house with Jack and Lisa. But in the end, she typed a quick "sure, sweetheart" and sent it. Lisa emerged later that afternoon, her demeanor cautious. She hovered near the kitchen door, watching Emma prepare lunch. "Need any help?" Lisa asked, her voice tentative. Emma didn't look up. "No, I've got it." There was a long silence before Lisa spoke again. Emma, I don't. Emma's voice was calm, but firm. She turned to face her sister, her eyes steely. I don't know what's going on between you and Jack, but I don't want to hear excuses right now. I need time to think. Lisa nodded, her face crumpling with what looked like genuine remorse. I'm sorry, she whispered before retreating to her room. As the day wore on, Emma found herself replaying the events of the past few weeks, piecing together every lingering touch, every awkward glance. She thought about Jack's sudden attentiveness, Lisa's forced cheerfulness. The puzzle was coming together, but the picture it formed was one she didn't want to see. That evening, Jack approached her again. This time, he sat across from her in the living room, his hands clasped tightly together. Emma, I know you're upset, and I know I've made mistakes. But you have to believe me when I say I love you. Whatever you think is happening, it's not what it looks like. Emma stared at him, her exhaustion creeping back in. Then tell me, Jack. Tell me what it is, because right now, I don't know what to believe. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, he looked down at his hands, silent. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat in the living room long after Jack had gone to bed, staring at the flickering glow of a candle on the coffee table. She replayed his words, his silence, and the undeniable tension that had seeped into their home. Every moment felt like a choice: confront him, confront Lisa, or let it fester. By the time dawn broke, Emma had made a decision. She wasn't going to let uncertainty destroy her. She needed answers, even if they hurt. Jack was in the kitchen when she finally went to face him, a mug of coffee in his hand and dark circles under his eyes. He looked up as she entered, his expression wary. Morning, he said cautiously. Emma didn't bother with pleasantries. We need to talk. Jack nodded, setting his mug down. Okay. They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the air between them thick with tension. For a moment, Emma just stared at him, trying to find the man she'd loved for nearly 2 decades. He looked tired, older than she remembered, but there was still a softness in his eyes that made her chest ache. Do you love me? She asked, her voice steady. Jack's head snapped up. Of course I do. Then what's going on with you and Lisa? He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. Emma, nothing physical has happened. I swear. Her stomach twisted. Nothing physical? So, what, emotional? Flirting? What is it, Jack? He sighed, looking away. I've been feeling disconnected. You're always at work, and when you're home, you're exhausted. I know it's not your fault, but I guess I just started to feel invisible. Invisible? Emma repeated, her voice rising. Jack, I work long hours so we can have this life. So Mia can have everything she needs. I didn't know you felt invisible, because you never told me. I know, he said quietly. And I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain. Emma leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. And Lisa? What role does she play in this? She was just there, Jack admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. She listened when I felt like no one else did. But it's not what you think. I never meant for it to go this far. Emma laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You didn't mean for it to go this far? Jack, do you hear yourself? She's my sister. Jack looked at her, his eyes pleading. I'm sorry, Emma. I know I messed up, but I need you to believe me when I say I never wanted to hurt you. Emma stared at him, her emotions a swirling mix of anger, hurt, and something she couldn't quite name. She wanted to scream, to cry, to throw him out of the house. But she also wanted to understand, to fix whatever had broken between them. I need time, she finally said, her voice cold. And you need to think about what you really want. Because if you can't commit to this family, Jack, then there's no point in continuing this. Jack nodded, his face crumpling. I'll do whatever it takes, Emma. Just tell me what to do. But Emma didn't have an answer for him. She stood and left the kitchen, feeling more lost than ever. Emma spent most of the day trying to focus on anything other than the heavy conversation she'd had with Jack. She cleaned the house, folded laundry, and even attempted to make dinner, but nothing could keep her mind from spiraling. By the time the sun began to set, she knew she couldn't ignore the other half of the equation, Lisa. She found her sister in the backyard, sitting on the patio swing with a book in her lap. Lisa looked up as Emma approached, her face instantly guarded. "We need to talk," Emma said, crossing her arms. Lisa closed her book slowly, setting it aside. "Okay." Emma stayed standing, her eyes hard. "Jack told me about how he felt disconnected, about how he started leaning on you. So now, I need to hear it from you. What's been going on?" Lisa's face flushed, and she looked away. "Emma, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I swear, I never wanted to come between you two. Then why didn't you stop it?" Emma's voice cracked, her anger barely contained. "Why didn't you come to me and tell me something was wrong?" Lisa looked up, her eyes glistening. "Because I was scared, okay? I was scared of making things worse. Jack was vulnerable, and I didn't know how to pull away without hurting him. Or you." "Hurt me?" Emma repeated, her voice rising. "Lisa, you've been sneaking around with my husband. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is?" Lisa winced, tears spilling over. "I know, Emma. I know I messed up, but nothing happened. Nothing physical." "Not yet," Emma snapped. "But do you think I'm stupid? You think I don't know where this was heading?" Lisa stood, her own frustration bubbling to the surface. "Do you think this is easy for me? Living here, seeing you so exhausted you can barely function, watching Jack feel like he's disappearing? I didn't ask for this, Emma." "No, but you didn't stop it either," Emma shot back. Her voice softened, her anger giving way to deep sadness. "You were supposed to have my back. You're my sister." Lisa's expression crumbled, and she sank back onto the swing. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I am so, so sorry." Emma stood there, her emotions warring within her. She wanted to scream, to demand answers that would make sense of the betrayal. But she knew there weren't any. Lisa was human, flawed, just like Jack. Just like her. It didn't excuse what had happened, but it gave Emma a flicker of clarity. "I don't know what to do with you," Emma said finally, her voice quiet. "But I need space. From you, from Jack. I can't keep pretending this is okay." Lisa nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I understand." Emma turned and walked back into the house, feeling the weight of the confrontation settle over her. For the first time, she realized that her family's survival wasn't guaranteed, and she wasn't sure she had the strength to hold it together anymore. The next day, Emma decided she couldn't let the tension continue to poison the house. Mia would be home soon, and the last thing she wanted was for her daughter to sense the cracks forming beneath their feet. Emma called both Jack and Lisa into the living room, the weight of what she was about to say pressing on her chest. Jack sat on the couch, his body language subdued, while Lisa hovered near the armrest, avoiding Emma's gaze. Emma stood across from them, arms crossed, her exhaustion visible in the lines of her face. "This stops now," she said, her voice firm but calm. "I don't care how either of you feel, what excuses you have, or what you thought was okay. This is my home, and I won't let it be destroyed." Jack opened his mouth to speak, but Emma held up a hand to stop him. "I'm not finished. You say you love me, Jack, but love isn't just words. It's action. And Lisa, you're my sister. I trusted you. I took you in because I thought we were family. Do you understand how deeply you've both betrayed me?" Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Ido, Emma, I'm sorry. I've been selfish and stupid, and I'll leave if that's what you need." Emma looked at her sharply. "Running away isn't going to fix this. What I need is honesty. If you want to stay in this house, you both need to take responsibility for what you've done and prove that it won't happen again." Jack leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Emma, I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I'll make this right." Emma's gaze softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "I don't want promises, Jack. I want results. And Lisa, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. But if you want to rebuild any kind of relationship with me, you'll need to earn it." Lisa nodded, her voice trembling. "I understand. I'll do whatever you need." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Emma finally exhaled, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. "For now, we're going to take this one day at a time. Jack, you and I need to have some serious conversations about our marriage. And Lisa, you're going to stay out of those conversations. Understood?" Both of them nodded, their expressions a mix of relief and apprehension. Emma turned to leave, but before she reached the stairs, she paused. I don't know what the future holds for us, but if either of you break my trust again, there won't be another chance. She walked upstairs, leaving them alone with their thoughts. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt like she'd taken control. But as she closed the door to her bedroom, she realized that control came with a price. Her heart was still breaking, and she had no idea how to piece it back together. The weekend passed with a fragile truce hanging over the house. Jack kept himself in his office, working quietly, while Lisa stayed out of Emma's way, spending most of her time in her room. Emma busied herself with mundane tasks, trying to hold her emotions together. But on Sunday evening, Mia returned home. Mia burst through the front door with her usual energy, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hey, I'm back," she called out. Her voice carried a warmth that Emma realized had been missing in the house. Emma walked into the hallway, smiling despite her exhaustion. How was your weekend?" "Good," Mia said, dropping her bag by the stairs. "We got so much done. The presentation is going to be amazing." She paused, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied her mom. "Are you okay? You look tired." Emma hesitated, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. Just a lot on my plate lately." Mia didn't look convinced, but she didn't press further. Instead, she glanced around. "Where's Dad? And Aunt Lisa?" "Dad's in his office," Emma said. "Lisa's upstairs." Mia nodded, but Emma could tell her daughter sensed something was off. She watched as Mia headed into the kitchen, humming softly to herself. The sound was comforting, a reminder of how much was still good in her life. Later that evening, as the family sat down to dinner, the tension was palpable. Jack was unusually quiet, and Lisa barely touched her food. Mia, ever perceptive, glanced between them, her brow furrowed. "Is something going on?" Mia asked, breaking the silence. Emma's stomach tightened. She exchanged a quick glance with Jack before responding. "Just some grown-up stuff, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." Mia didn't look convinced. "You guys are acting weird." Jack forced a chuckle. "We're fine, Mia." "Really?" Mia's eyes lingered on him for a moment before she turned to Emma. "Okay, but if something's wrong, you'll tell me, right?" Emma reached across the table, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Of course, sweetheart." The rest of the meal passed in strained small talk, with Mia doing her best to fill the silences. After dinner, as Emma washed the dishes, Mia joined her, leaning against the counter. "Mom," Mia said quietly, "is this about Dad and Aunt Lisa?" Emma froze, her hands stilling in the soapy water. "What do you mean?" Mia shrugged, her expression guarded. "I don't know. It just feels like, like something's weird between them. I've seen the way they act around each other." Emma's heart sank. She wanted to shield Mia from the truth, to protect her daughter from the cracks in their family. But she also knew Mia wasn't a child anymore. She deserved honesty, at least a version of it. "Things have been a little tense," Emma admitted. "But your dad and I are working through it. And Lisa, well, she's trying to figure some things out too." Mia nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I just want us to be okay." Emma turned to her, wiping her hands on a towel before pulling Mia into a hug. "We will be, sweetheart. I promise." But as she held her daughter close, Emma couldn't help but wonder if that was a promise she could keep. The days that followed were a precarious balancing act. Emma juggled her demanding schedule at the hospital with the emotional weight of her fractured household. Jack tiptoed around her, desperate to avoid further confrontation, while Lisa remained withdrawn, doing her best to avoid both Emma and Jack. Mia, sensing the tension, retreated into her schoolwork in her room, leaving Emma to navigate the growing silence. One evening, after a particularly grueling surgery, Emma came home later than usual. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the television coming from the living room. She set her bag down by the door and walked in to find Jack and Lisa on opposite ends of the couch. The distance between them was noticeable, but so was the awkwardness. Jack stood up quickly when he saw her. "You're home late." Emma nodded, her gaze shifting between him and Lisa. "Busy day. What's going on here?" "Just watching TV," Jack said, too quickly. Lisa avoided Emma's eyes, muttering, I was just about to head upstairs. Emma stepped into the room, her exhaustion fueling her impatience. Don't bother. See? Lisa froze, then slowly sank back onto the couch. Jack sat as well, his posture tense. I'm not going to play games with you two, Emma said, crossing her arms. I'm tired and I'm done pretending this house isn't a pressure cooker. So let's get it all out. Right now. Jack looked at Lisa, then back at Emma. Emma, I've already told you, nothing physical happened. I know what you told me, Emma said sharply. But I also know there's more to this than you're admitting. Both of you. Lisa shifted uncomfortably, finally meeting Emma's gaze. I've been trying to stay out of your way, Emma. I don't know what else to do. Emma laughed bitterly. Staying out of my way doesn't fix anything, Lisa. You're still here, in this house, every day, reminding me of what almost happened. Jack reached for Emma's hand, but she pulled away. Emma, I know I've made mistakes, but I'm trying. I don't want to lose you. You should have thought of that before you turned to her. Emma snapped, her voice trembling. Lisa flinched, tears welling in her eyes. Emma, please? I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, I would. Emma stared at them, her emotions a storm of anger, hurt, and confusion. She wanted to scream, to demand answers that would make sense of their betrayal. But deep down, she knew there were no answers that could heal the wound they'd inflicted. After a long silence, Emma exhaled, her shoulders slumping. I can't do this tonight. I need space. From both of you. She turned and walked upstairs, leaving Jack and Lisa alone in the stifling quiet. In her bedroom, Emma sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. For the first time in days, she let herself cry, not just for what she'd lost, but for the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The following morning, Emma woke up feeling hollow. The tears from the night before had drained her, leaving behind an ache she couldn't shake. She moved through her routine mechanically, getting ready for work. Jack made himself scarce, and Lisa stayed in her room, but Emma preferred it that way. She needed the quiet. As she was about to leave for the hospital, there was a knock at the door. Emma frowned, glancing at the clock. It was early, too early for visitors. She opened the door to find a woman standing there, someone she vaguely recognized. Hi, the woman said, her tone hesitant. I'm Carla. I live a few houses down. I wasn't sure if I should come over, but I think you need to know something. Emma's stomach tightened. What is it? Carla glanced over her shoulder nervously before stepping closer. I've seen your husband and your sister together at the coffee shop on Main Street. A few times. Emma's grip tightened on the doorframe. When? Carla hesitated. A few weeks ago. They were sitting in the corner booth talking. It might have been innocent, but the way they looked at each other didn't feel innocent. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her. She fought to keep her voice steady. Thank you for telling me. Carla nodded, her expression sympathetic. I didn't want to overstep, but I thought you deserved to know. Emma closed the door slowly, her mind racing. The pieces she'd been struggling to put together suddenly clicked into place. The late-night whispers, the lingering looks, the awkward tension. All of it led back to those secret meetings. At work, Emma struggled to focus. Her hands moved automatically through the motions of surgery, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying Carla's words. By the time her shift ended, she was more exhausted than ever, emotionally and physically. When she arrived home, the house was unusually quiet. Mia was in her room, her music playing softly, and Jack was in his office. Emma climbed the stairs and stopped outside Lisa's door. She knocked once before pushing it open. Lisa looked up from her bed, startled. Emma, we need to talk, Emma said, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. Lisa sat up, her expression wary. What's going on? I know about the coffee shop, Emma said bluntly. And don't lie to me. Lisa's face drained of color. Emma, it wasn't. Don't. Emma interrupted, her voice icy. Don't insult me by pretending it was innocent. Lisa's shoulders sagged, and she looked away. We just talked. That's all. He needed someone to listen, and I was stupid enough to think I could help. Help? Emma laughed bitterly. You call this helping? You knew how vulnerable he was, how much strain we were under, and you still let this happen. I didn't mean for it to go so far, Lisa said, her voice breaking. I swear, Emma, I never wanted to hurt you. Emma stared at her sister, her anger simmering just below the surface. You've already hurt me, Lisa. The question is, what are you going to do to fix it? Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but Emma didn't stay to watch. She turned and left the room, her heart pounding. For the first time, she felt a flicker of resolve. She wouldn't let their betrayal break her. Not completely. The next morning, Emma woke with a renewed sense of determination. She had spent the night tossing and turning, replaying every conversation, every moment that led to this fracture in her family. But now, she was done being passive. If there was a chance to salvage her marriage, or even just her sanity, she needed to take control. Over breakfast, the tension was as thick as ever. Jack sat quietly at the table, his coffee untouched, while Lisa remained in her room. Mia ate quickly, her headphones in, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around her. Emma waited until Mia had left for school before addressing Jack. We need rules, Emma said, breaking the silence. Jack looked up startled. Rules? Yes. Rules to make this house livable again, Emma said, her tone firm. For starters, you and Lisa are never to be alone together. Ever. If I'm not home, you stay out of her room and she stays out of yours. Jack nodded slowly. Okay, that's fair. Emma crossed her arms. And you need to start being honest with me. No more secrets, no more excuses. If something's bothering you, you come to me, not her. I will, Jack said earnestly. I swear, Emma, I'll do whatever it takes. We'll see, Emma replied, her voice hard. Because I'm not giving any more chances. If you can't follow these rules, I'm done. Jack's expression crumpled, but he nodded. I understand. Later that day, Emma called Lisa into the living room. Her sister approached cautiously, as if walking on eggshells. Emma gestured for her to sit, but remained standing herself. I've set some boundaries with Jack, Emma began, and now I'm setting them with you. Lisa swallowed, her eyes wide. Okay. You are here because I let you stay, Emma said, her voice cold. But that doesn't mean you get to take advantage of my generosity. From now on, you will stay out of Jack's way. No more coffee shop meetings, no more private conversations. You're not his confidant. You're my sister. Lisa nodded quickly. I understand. I'll stay out of his way. And, Emma added, leaning in slightly, if you so much as look at him in a way that makes me uncomfortable, you're out. Do you hear me? Lisa's face reddened, and she nodded again. I hear you. Good. Emma straightened, her gaze unwavering. Because this is your last chance, Lisa. Don't make me regret it. As Lisa retreated to her room, Emma felt a small sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she had taken a step toward reclaiming her home. But she also knew that boundaries were just the beginning. Trust would take much longer to rebuild, if it could be rebuilt at all. The days following Emma's ultimatum were quieter, but the tension remained palpable. Lisa stayed in her room most of the time, emerging only when necessary, while Jack made a noticeable effort to respect the boundaries Emma had laid out. He spent more time with Mia, helping her with schoolwork and driving her to soccer practice, as if trying to prove his dedication to the family. One evening, as Emma sat at the dining table reviewing medical journals, Jack approached hesitantly. He carried 2 mugs of tea, setting one down in front of her before sitting across the table. Can we talk? He asked softly. Emma looked up, wary. What is it? Jack took a deep breath, his hands clasped tightly around his mug. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I've been selfish, how I've hurt you. Emma said nothing, waiting for him to continue. I want to fix this, Jack said, his voice trembling slightly. I don't know if you'll ever be able to trust me again, but I want to try. I think we should go to counseling. Emma raised an eyebrow. Counseling? Yeah, Jack said quickly. Couples therapy. I know I've let you down, Emma, and I can't fix it on my own. I need help. We both do. Emma leaned back in her chair, studying him. There was a sincerity in his voice that gave her pause, but she wasn't ready to let her guard down completely. Do you really think counseling can undo this? The lies, the betrayal? I don't know, Jack admitted, but I think it's worth trying. For us. For Mia. Emma sighed. running a hand through her hair. The idea of laying bare their problems in front of a stranger made her stomach churn, but she also couldn't deny that they needed help. The cracks in their marriage were too deep to patch on their own. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Jack's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. "That's all I'm asking." As he left the room, Emma stared at the tea he'd made for her, untouched and growing cold. The thought of counseling scared her, not because of the vulnerability it required, but because she wasn't sure if she wanted to save their marriage. Deep down, she wondered if it was already too late. The decision to try counseling came after a restless night of tossing and turning. Emma stared at the ceiling for hours, weighing Jack's proposal. Part of her wanted to shut him out completely, to sever the ties and start fresh. But another part, the part that remembered the good years, the shared laughter, and their life with Mia, couldn't let go just yet. The first session was scheduled for a Tuesday evening. Emma met Jack at the therapist's office after work, her nerves on edge. Jack had arrived early and was already seated in the waiting room when she walked in. He gave her a tentative smile, but she didn't return it. The therapist, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Keller, greeted them warmly and led them into her cozy office. Emma sat stiffly on the couch, keeping as much distance from Jack as the cushions would allow. Dr. Keller began with an open-ended question. "So, tell me why you're here." Emma glanced at Jack, silently daring him to speak first. He cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "I made some mistakes," he admitted. "Big ones." Dr. Keller nodded. "Can you elaborate on that?" Jack hesitated, then spoke, his voice low. "I've been emotionally unfaithful. I leaned on someone else instead of my wife when I was feeling disconnected." Emma's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Dr. Keller turned to her. "Emma, how does that make you feel?" "How does it make me feel?" Emma repeated, her voice sharp. "Angry. Betrayed. Like the life I thought we had was a lie." Jack flinched, but Emma didn't stop. "I gave everything to this family. My time, my energy, my love. And he turned to someone else because I wasn't available enough? It's insulting." Dr. Keller nodded, her expression compassionate. "Those feelings are valid, Emma. Betrayal can leave deep scars." "Jack, what do you think about what Emma just said?" Jack looked at her, his eyes filled with regret. "She's right. I was selfish. I didn't think about how my actions would hurt her, or us." Emma scoffed, crossing her arms. "No, you didn't. And now I'm supposed to believe that counseling will fix everything? That we can just move past this?" Dr. Keller leaned forward. "Counseling isn't about forgetting what happened, Emma. It's about understanding it, processing it, and deciding together if you want to rebuild. But that takes time, and it takes commitment from both of you." Emma sighed, her anger giving way to exhaustion. "I don't even know if I can trust him again." "That's understandable," Dr. Keller said gently. "Trust is earned, not given. And it starts with honest communication." The session continued, with Dr. Keller guiding them through their feelings and the events that had brought them there. By the time it ended, Emma felt drained, but also slightly lighter. For the first time, she had voiced her pain, and Jack had listened without making excuses. As they left the office, Jack walked beside her in silence. When they reached her car, he hesitated. "Emma," he said softly, "thank you for coming. I know it's not easy." She met his eyes, searching for sincerity. "Don't thank me yet. We're not out of the woods." Jack nodded, stepping back as she got into her car. As Emma drove home, she couldn't help but wonder if the therapy would help, or if it was just delaying the inevitable. The second counseling session was more intense. Dr. Keller encouraged Emma and Jack to dig deeper into the cracks in their marriage. Emma spoke about the exhaustion she carried, the weight of being the family's provider, and the loneliness that came with Jack's withdrawal. Jack confessed to feeling inadequate, overshadowed by Emma's success and unable to voice his needs without guilt. By the end of the session, Emma felt raw, as if old wounds had been reopened. Jack's admission about his insecurities stung. She'd never intended to make him feel less than a partner, but the revelation felt like a thinly veiled excuse for his betrayal. Things at home didn't improve overnight. Lisa remained a ghost in the house, emerging only for meals and brief interactions. Mia had started asking more questions, her instincts telling her that something wasn't right. One evening, as Emma prepared dinner, Mia leaned against the counter, watching her mom closely. "Mom," she said softly, "is something going on between you and Dad?" Emma froze, her knife hovering over the cutting board. She glanced at her daughter, trying to decide how much to say. "Your dad and I are working through some things." Mia frowned. "What kind of things?" Emma sighed, setting the knife down. "Marriage is complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes people make mistakes, and it takes time to figure out if you can move past them." "Did he cheat on you?" Mia asked bluntly. Emma's heart dropped. "Why would you ask that?" Mia shrugged, but her expression was pained. "You don't talk to him like you used to. And Aunt Lisa, she's been acting weird." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "Your dad didn't cheat on me, Mia. But he and I both made mistakes, and we're trying to fix them." Mia studied her for a long moment before nodding. "Okay, I just want us to be okay." Emma forced a smile, pulling her daughter into a hug. "We'll be okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Later that night, Emma confronted Jack again. "Mia is starting to notice," she said, her voice low but firm. "We need to figure this out, for her sake, if nothing else." Jack nodded, guilt etched across his face. "I know. I'm trying, Emma. I swear I am." But Emma wasn't sure if trying was enough anymore. The fractures in their family were deepening, and she didn't know if love alone could hold them together. The third counseling session was a turning point. Dr. Keller asked them to confront the hardest question of all. "Why do you want to stay married?" Emma hesitated, her heart pounding. She looked at Jack, his face lined with regret and vulnerability. For years, they had been partners, raising Mia, building a life together. She loved him, despite everything. But was love enough? "I want to stay because I believe in what we built," Emma said slowly, her voice shaking. "I love Jack. I love our family. But I can't keep giving if I'm the only one fighting." Jack nodded, his voice breaking. "I want to stay because I still love you, Emma. I made terrible choices, and I can't undo them. But I want to prove that I can be the husband you deserve." Dr. Keller listened, her expression thoughtful. "Love is a starting point, but rebuilding trust takes effort and consistency. You both have to decide if you're willing to do the hard work, because it won't be easy." After the session, Emma felt conflicted. Jack's words seemed sincere, but the scars of betrayal lingered. That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she realized that staying together wasn't just about love. It was about whether they could rebuild the trust that had been shattered. The next morning, Emma made a decision. She called Lisa into the living room, her expression resolute. "I think it's time you moved out." Lisa's face crumpled. "Emma, I need space," Emma said firmly. "You've apologized, and I appreciate that, but I can't start healing with you here." Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll pack my things." As Lisa left the house that evening, Emma felt a bittersweet sense of relief. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. With Lisa gone, Emma turned her focus to Jack and Mia. They began attending family counseling sessions, where Mia had the opportunity to voice her fears and confusion. Jack worked tirelessly to rebuild Emma's trust, going to individual therapy and making an effort to communicate more openly. Months passed, and slowly, the tension in the house began to ease. Emma and Jack still had difficult days, but they were learning how to navigate their pain together. For Emma, forgiveness wasn't an instant decision, but a daily choice, a commitment to moving forward. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jack reached for her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Emma asked, her voice soft. "For giving me another chance," Jack said. "For believing in us." Emma looked at him, her heart still heavy, but lighter than it had been in months. "I'm not there yet, Jack, but I'm trying." And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start,